Hello class. Today I want to speak about energy and globalization. But before I start, I will shortly explain what I exactly mean with globalization. Many of you will already know, or at least have a slight idea of what globalization means. For everyone who needs a little help, think about your phone or personal computer, which the aluminium is from China, the lithium in our batteries comes from Africa, the silicon from Brazil, and so on. Now you have the parts for your phone, but you also need to assemble it, but you can't do it in Germany because it would be too expensive, regarding salaries and other amenities like worker rights and such. Because of that you assemble it in China, maybe Taiwan, either way it will be much cheaper in comparison. Now you can probably already see what globalization means. It means to produce everything, everywhere for the cheapest prices and the lowest wages, and preferably with minimal or no worker rights. But worker rights or mineral mining or even the means of production aren't what we are looking for today. We are looking into energy, not only the energy in the form of electricity that comes out your wall plug, but more general. All the energy that humanity uses, produces, and ultimately wastes in the conversion to heat. Now some of you are maybe asking yourself, but buddy, how is the topic of general energy linked to globalization, and what is your point? No sorrow class, I will explain it, and not only that but the problems that also come with globalized energy, its usage, and maybe even a small solution for the current situation. The ships that are loading the cargo from China and is then further shipped across the globe needs oil for its voyage. The plane that takes express packages needs kerosene, and the guy that calls you from India to help you in some tech-related problem also needs energy in the form of electricity for his tools, such as computers and servers. The internet that connects you and him, and to be exact at this point most of humanity, also needs energy. I think that you are beginning to understand the root of the issue. We as a species not only need energy, but also desperately need to produce more and more, faster and faster, and in an unprecedented pace in human history. From our first statistic we can infer that the global energy consumption was at nearly 10,000 terawatt-hours, in the year 1900, which is unbelievably large as a number. 1 terawatts equals 1 trillion watts, or 10 to the power of 12 watts, 10 with 12 zeros. To take that number into perspective, 1 terawatt is enough to power 1 million homes. But since the 19th century the global energy consumption did not get doubled or even tripled, it grew with an exponential rate. Since the old times we expanded the consumption from 10,000 terawatt-hours to more than 160,000 terawatt-hours, and an ending not only seems unreasonable, but also highly dangerous. Maybe you want to ask now why it would be dangerous to lower energy consumption, but think about it. Your employer needs cheap energy to not only produce his goods but also to improve the productivity of his workforce with tools, such as trucks, computers, CNC machines. If all products would be made out of the energy that the worker could bring up himself, we would be living in a pre-industrial era, and most of us would work in agriculture to meet their own energy demands, food. That means the total amount of goods and services tends to be very low in such an economy and heavily depends on the amount of total energy that a country can capitalize on. Let's look into my second and third statistic. The second statistic shows the world GDP, gross domestic product, which is a measure for how much monetary gain a specific country in a defined time period made, and the next one shows the German power consumption and production in comparison to the German GDP. Both show clearly that GDP and energy consumption correlate, and that energy consumption precedes GDP growth, which indicates that energy growth is a cause of GDP growth. With the information in our hands we now can try to establish a few axioms for humanity regarding energy consumption and production, and we are then perhaps able to find solutions for our issue here. 1. Energy consumption directly correlates to wealth. 2. Energy consumption is a good indicator for GDP growth and for that matter recessions. 3. Energy consumption will rise. That brings us to 2 minor theories that we can infer from our axioms. Rising demand for energy will temporarily inflate globalized trade and politics because the integration of countries into the world economy will give a boost to the world economy, but this temporary boost will not last long as the resources for the needed energy production will deplete fast in new integrated countries. In such situation it would only be normal for such countries to look inward and decrease the volume of globalized trade and take the energy for themselves in the hopes of further expanding their wealth. Globalization is a fantastic way to connect and share, but also accelerates the given issue of energy shortages and our need to find new ways to manage and produce the so much needed energy. Here is a quote from Gail Tverberg, who is a writer, and is known for her work in the sector of energy issues and peak oil. When there is enough cheap to produce energy to go around, the obvious choice is to cooperate. Thus the trend toward globalization makes sense. When there is not enough cheap to produce energy to go around, the obvious choice is to try reducing the effects of globalization and immigration. This is the major reason why globalization can't last. What can we do? Is there even anything that we could do? Maybe these are some questions that are drifting through your minds, and I can absolutely understand that. I myself want to consume things, I want to buy things, I want to see things, and I wholeheartedly hate the thought of restraining myself or my habits, and I know for a fact that many other people think the same. What is it that we can do, in a world where energy consumption is synonymous with a coming ecological collapse, children that work for practically nothing in a factory who knows where on the planet? The permanent thought that my smartphone is not that much different to abusing someone across the planet, maybe even the child that assembled my phone, breaks my heart. I am not entirely sure what the solution could be in our situation, but one thing is safe to assume: nobody wants a world where every country works for themselves and globalization is not only declining but dead. We as humanity not only need to work together, but also need to not forget how globalization is helping us every day, from goods and services that can be bought or sold from anywhere for anyone, but also cultural exchange, music, work, understanding each other, finding new solutions for issues, and most importantly of all, connection. Connection to other humans, cultures, ideas, breakthroughs, friends, family, and so on. I will not steal much more time from you, my dear peers. Anything on this planet seems to be connected to energy and how much we can consume and produce, but if we want to tackle this problem, we need to solve many different subjects. For example, what alternative could we use for natural gas? What are good approaches to desalinating seawater? What could we do to water the desert, and what could we do to increase the wealth of humanity? I believe that the solution is already here and next door, on our streets, in our parks, in our schools, and slowly even our politics. We are the solution. Everybody has the potential to take on a specific problem, make it public, and be the first step to change. I myself, for example, want to invent something that could help us, maybe a generator or a more effective type of photovoltaic cell. Whatever it is, in the end, I believe we all can do our part in connecting the world and increase our energy consumption and production, hopefully without headaches.